So I get asked a lot, who are the Rams going to play in the playoffs? What's the most likely outcome? And how can this thing happen? Well, let me just let you know before anything that you should like, subscribe, comment, and you should follow me at JK Bogan. But no, there are three teams. That's it. I saw someone on Twitter saying they could play the Saints again. That's not possible, guys. This is how things can go. The Rams can't get the 5 seed. They can't. The Eagles or Cowboys have the 5 seed locked up. So they're not getting the 5 seed. Because of that, they will not be playing the NFC South. They won't be playing the Falcons. They won't be playing Tampa. They won't be playing the Saints. Does not matter. However those things go down, they cannot play any of those teams in the first round of the playoffs. The second round, yes, that's still possible if they beat their 5th seed, whether that's the Eagles or Cowboys. But no, the Rams are not going to see any of those teams. They're going to see either the Detroit Lions, the Dallas Cowboys, or the Philadelphia Eagles. So let's get into the scenarios and how this works. Well, first off, the Rams are starting Carson Wentz. They're going to start the majority of their starters. I'll have this in another video and explain why I feel so great about Carson Wentz in this game. But they're going to be starting the majority of their starters. They're going to be sitting Matthew Stafford, Kyren Williams, Cooper Kupp, likely Puka Nacua after he breaks the record. Higbee's out. Noteboom is out with injuries. And then, of course, Aaron Donald. After that, and Ernest Jones. After that, that's it. So they're starting most of their team. And, I think really what it comes down to is that's good enough to win a football game. Sam Darnold's in at quarterback, not Brock Purdy. I know the 49ers will likely start most of their starters to start the game in the first half. But the second half, we'll see if they continue because they do have a bye week. And I'm sure they want to play their guys, but they also have to be aware that you want to keep these guys healthy. You don't want anybody going down like a Bosa or, God forbid, Trent Williams goes down. Somebody like that, right? Christian McCaffrey's out as well. So I think the Rams have a shot. But let's just say, the Rams playing for, I think they're playing for the 6th seed in the best way they can with the sitting the starters, right? They're not sitting all the starters. They're putting an effort out there, and I like the way they're doing it. So let's get into it. How can they play the Detroit Lions? I think every NFL football fan should want this to happen. Rams, Lions, Jared Goff gets a chance at revenge to knock the Rams out of the playoffs. Team trade him away. Stafford gets a shot to get some revenge because the Lions weren't going to bring him back. So they traded him away, although he should feel good because he went to the Rams. That was a pretty good spot. But all these years, Stafford can't win the big game. Stafford can't win the playoffs. He did it, and you still hear stupid stuff like that being said. So if he were to go into Ford Field and win that game against the Lions, that would be great. Sean McVay versus Jared Goff as well. Just a lot of great storylines there. Aubrey Pleasant revenge game. He was fired by the Lions last year. So a lot of opportunities here. Brad Holmes gets to show up. The Rams potentially, because that's his, now his team. I think there's a lot of respect between the two teams, but definitely some storylines. In order for this to happen, though, in order for Stafford and the Rams to head to Detroit in the first round, the Rams would have to get the 6th seed in this first scenario. The way they do that is they beat the 49ers, and for the Lions to hold on to the 3 seed, the Cowboys beat the Washington Commanders. If that happens, the Rams winning, Cowboys winning, Lions get the 3, and the Rams get the 6. The reason being because that Cowboys game was so important. We can get into it all we want, but the Cowboys do have the tiebreaker because of the end result. Number 2 scenario for playing Detroit. The Rams beat the 49ers, the Cowboys lose, and the Eagles beat the Giants. If that all happens, then that means the Eagles would have the tiebreaker. They would take over the 2nd seed, and they would knock Detroit down to the 3 seed. So therefore, Rams still stay at the 6th seed. I think the Rams are going to beat the 49ers, by the way, but I think the first scenario for Detroit is the most likely. I think the Rams beat the 49ers. I think the Cowboys beat the Commanders, but we'll see what ends up happening. That second one, though, like I said, the Eagles beating the Giants, that's a tough game. It's January football, and it's at MetLife Stadium. That was cold, I can tell you that, this past weekend. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But if that does happen, they get the 6th seed. They would play the 3rd seed Lions. Moving on, we still have another 6th seed scenario, and this is the only scenario that the Rams acquire the 6th seed with a loss to the 49ers, and they play the Detroit Lions still. The Rams lose. The Packers drop the game to the Bears. And there you go. Now they're in the 6th seed. And if that's the case, then the Cowboys win. If that happens, then the Lions are in the 6th, or the Lions are in the 3 seed. The Rams are in the 6th seed. The Packers have the head-to-head tiebreaker. So if the Packers beat the Lions, or excuse me, the Packers beat the Bears, they would have the same amount of wins as the Rams and would win the tiebreaker because they won head-to-head before the bye. So because of that, if the Packers lose and the Rams lose, it's just null and void. And there's actually a good chance if the Packers lose this game, then Seattle could sneak into the 7th seed. But there's not one team out there, Seattle, Minnesota, Atlanta, Tampa, New Orleans, that can steal that 6th seed from the Rams. Only the Packers because of the head-to-head tiebreaker. So Rams lose to 49ers, Packers win, Lions win, Cowboys lose. That would put the Rams as the 7th seed. The Lions winning would now make them the 2 seed. And of course, in this scenario, the Eagles would also have to lose because they would have the tiebreaker. So if the Eagles lose to the Giants, the Cowboys lose to the Commanders, the Lions beat the Vikings, the Packers beat the Bears, and the Rams fall to the 49ers, the Rams would get the 7th seed, the Packers would move up to the 6th seed, and the Lions would have the 2 seed, so the Rams would be going to Detroit. That is the last scenario there. Okay, we move on. Playing against Dallas. Now, this is the most likely, in my opinion, should the Rams lose the game, right? But there is one chance if the Rams beat the 49ers that it does get to that point. So, playing against Dallas, if the Rams wanted to play against the Cowboys for whatever reason, they beat the 49ers. This is the first one. They can still get the 6th seed here. Beat the 49ers, Lions beat the Vikings, Cowboys lose, and the Eagles lose. If this happens, the Lions have more wins than the Cowboys, so the head-to-head tiebreaker doesn't matter. The Eagles also wouldn't have a tiebreaker because they lost. And so if that is the case, the Rams would hold on to the 6th seed, and the Cowboys would fall from 2 to 3 while the Lions move up to 2. So that's the first thing. The second scenario of play in Dallas, the Rams lose to the 49ers. The Packers lose to the Bears. The Lions beat the Vikings. The Cowboys lose to the Commanders. And the Eagles lose to the Giants. So this is a scenario where the Rams are able to lose and still get the 6th seed, but they end up playing Dallas because they didn't take care of business against Washington for whatever reason. The Eagles didn't take care of business against the Giants, and the Lions beat the Vikings. Now, if the Rams lose to the 49ers, the Packers beat the Bears, and the Cowboys win, the Rams are set to play the Cowboys in the first round, 7th seed, heading to Jerry World. They are the 2 seed. So those are the 3 scenarios and how the Rams would play the Dallas Cowboys in the first round of the playoffs. We move on here to the Philadelphia Eagles. The Rams only have 2 scenarios in which they would play the Philadelphia Eagles. One, by the way, that was the 7th seed. So one, with the 6th seed, they would have to beat the 49ers. The Lions beat the Vikings. The Cowboys lose to the Washington Commanders. And the Eagles tie the Giants. If that happens, the Rams can play them as the 3 seed because an Eagles tie would allow the Lions to take over that 2nd spot. And then there you go. The Eagles fall to 3rd, and that's what happens. There's no way if the Eagles win and the Lions win, the Eagles would still take over because here's the thing. A Cowboys loss gives the Eagles an opportunity to move up and take over the division. They can still win the division. They can't get to that 2 seed, 3 seed without winning said division. So if the Cowboys lose, then all of a sudden that head-to-head tiebreaker matters. And therefore, if the Eagles were to tie, that is the only way that the Rams could see them as the 6th seed, since if they win, then they would be the 2. If they lose, they would be the 5. So The second option, the Rams lose to the 49ers. The Packers beat the Bears. The Eagles beat the Giants, and the Cowboys lose to Washington. If this happens, and this is probably the least likely scenario, if this happens, then the Philadelphia Eagles would get the 2 seed. The Lions would have the 3. The Cowboys would have the 5. The Rams would have the 7. And the Packers would have the 6. So if that happened, the Rams have the 7 seed. They'd go to Philadelphia and play the number 2 seeded Eagles. Now, what do I want to happen? I'll be honest with you. I think the Rams can beat the Eagles. I think the Rams can beat the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Rams can beat the Lions. What I want to happen as a fan of the sport to see the Rams versus the Lions. I think the storylines are too great. But part of me wants to see the Rams get revenge on the Dallas Cowboys, and I think they could. Mind you, the Rams did not have Rob Havenstein in that game, and they did not have Kyron Williams in that game, and they only had Matthew Stafford for half of the game. Then Brett Rippon came in. So I do think the Rams could beat Dallas. I think you've started to see them. They're starting to show their colors a little bit. Haven't done well on the road, 3-5. This would be at home, though. And when you look at that, you think, okay, they've been dominant at home. They haven't lost. Yeah, but the Rams have only lost 1 game since the bye. And that 1 game was to the Ravens, where they should have won also. They lost that on the road, in the cold, in the wind, all of that. Dallas has struggled. The Lions game, you could argue the Lions won. I mean, obviously they didn't, but we know what the officiating did. And in addition to that, look at the way Seattle played them down the stretch. I mean, I understand desperate team and everything, but Seattle almost won that game. So I look at the Cowboys as a team that the Rams could absolutely beat, and I think they will beat whoever they play in the first round. So I'll say that. And then I think the Rams also would want revenge against Philly. Philly went into SoFi. Detroit hasn't done that, and Dallas hasn't done that since last year. Philly went into SoFi and beat them by 9 in a game that really just felt like, Kyron Williams couldn't get going, although they kind of abandoned the run. Cooper Kupp was back. It kind of spoiled, what they were. The Rams have been somewhat snake bitten, though. They've played teams at probably the worst times you could play them. They played Philly at their best. They played the Steelers coming off a bye with Kenny Pickett and not Mason Rudolph, but actually I would just say Mitch Trubisky. They've played teams that have been really good at the time that they played them. They played the Bengals with Joe Burrow instead of without Joe Burrow, right? So you look at that and you're like, they've played them at the best time. You could argue they played the Colts, who they ended up being a really good football team this year. They were probably going to be their best, in my opinion, with Anthony Richardson. So the Rams have been snake bitten. And they played the Eagles right before their collapse. The Eagles won a bunch of games in a row, and then they had this collapse. And now they've been losing games left and right. They just lost to the Cardinals. I think this Rams team would have no issue beating the Eagles. And if you want to say, well, Jake, they're going to be on the road, it's different. The Rams are used to playing with a silent count on their own home turf. So let's just keep that in mind here. They're 4-4 on the road, and they have some impressive games in which they've, stuck it down to the wire. Even their losses, they've been impressive on the road. So 4-4, kind of a clean slate here. I think that they can beat any of these teams. I think they will beat any of these teams. My prediction is that the Rams win. I'm going to say the Rams win, the Packers win. I'm going to say the Lions beat the Vikings. I'm going to say the Cowboys beat the Commanders. And we're going to say the Eagles lose to the Giants. So with that said, the 1 seed stays with the 49ers. They have the bye. Number 2 seed would be Dallas. Number 3 seed would be the Lions. Number 4 seed, I didn't even say, but I think will probably be Tampa. They got the Panthers the final game of the year. Number 5 will be the Eagles. Number 6, the Rams. Number 7, the Packers. So that means that the Packers would go to Dallas. The Rams would go to Ford Field. And the Eagles would get a matchup, once again, a rematch against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And should those things go in the Rams' favor, the Rams beat the Lions, the Packers beat the Packers beat the Cowboys, then we would have an exact rematch of the 2021 divisional round of the NFC playoffs. We would have the different locations, of course. The Rams would go back to Tampa. They would play Baker Mayfield in the second round to go to the NFC title game with a shot if the 49ers lost to the Packers with a shot to potentially host the NFC title game. So the Rams would have a shot against Tampa, and if everything happened this way, and then the Packers with a rematch like 2021 would have a shot against the 49ers. If the Packers beat the 49ers, the Rams would be the highest seed, and SoFi Stadium would be hosting the NFC title game, improbably, but still, it's possible. So we'll see what ends up happening, but these are your playoff scenarios based on, everything that's going on. I'm really excited about the playoffs. Can't stress that enough, but I'm really excited about Week 18. There's still another football game. Let's not go too far in advance, but I just figured I'd let you guys know. So I'm Jake Ellenbogen. You can follow me at JKBogan. You could like, subscribe, and comment. Helps out the channel, and I'll see you guys on the flip. Later, folks.
Start playing Pick'em or Weekly Fantasy for any sport today, Jake. Users will receive a 100% deposit match up to $100 if they use promo code OTE at sign up. Start playing Pick'em and Weekly Fantasy Football today with Underdog Fantasy.
Do you love talking about the Rams, the NFL, or just want to be a part of a community? Join my free Discord server today. We're over 800 members. We got 24/7 live chat, a level 3 boosted server, the ability to call into JE Live, playing online games with us on Kick streams, toggleable alerts for when I go live on YouTube or Kick so you don't miss a live stream, and exclusive giveaways. Click the link in the description, the comments section, or the link that comes up in the video to learn more and join today. Most of their team